Chapter 1. A Bright Light in Skopje. In a small, peaceful town called Skopje, a little girl was born on August 26, 1910. Her name was Agnieszka Gąsche-Bojaciu, but everyone called her Gąsza. Gąsza means little flower in Albanian, and just like a flower, she brought joy and light wherever she went. Skopje, which is now in North Macedonia, was a place where people of different cultures and religions lived together. Gąsza's family was Albanian, and they were devout Catholics. Her father, Nikola, was a successful businessman, and her mother, Drana, was a homemaker with a heart full of love. Gąsza's parents raised her and her siblings in a home filled with faith, kindness, and a deep sense of responsibility towards others. From a very young age, Gąsza was different. She wasn't just an ordinary child. There was something special about her. She was always curious, always asking questions, and always full of energy. But more than anything, she was full of love. Love for her family, love for her friends, and love for everyone around her. Gąsza's mother often noticed how her little girl would spend extra time with those who were sad or lonely, comforting them with her gentle words and warm smile. Gąsza's family was very religious, and they went to church regularly. She loved going to church. The peacefulness, the prayers, the candles, it all felt like home to her. Even as a young child, she felt a strong connection to God. She would often sit quietly, her hands folded, and pray with all her heart. She didn't always understand the prayers, but she felt them, deep inside her. Gąsza's mother, Drana, was a woman of great compassion. She had a saying that she often repeated to her children: "My children, never eat a single mouthful unless you are sharing it with others." Drana lived by these words. She was always helping the poor and the sick in their town. If someone was hungry, she would feed them. If someone was sad, she would comfort them. And she taught her children to do the same. Gąsza admired her mother so much. She wanted to be just like her. She wanted to help people, to make them feel loved and cared for. The lessons from her mother stayed in her heart, growing stronger with each passing day. But life wasn't always easy for Gąsza. When she was just 8 years old, something terrible happened. Her father, Nikola, died suddenly. It was a shock to the whole family. Gąsza couldn't understand why this had happened. She was heartbroken, and her home, once filled with laughter, now felt quiet and empty. Drana was also deeply saddened by the loss of her husband, but she knew she had to be strong for her children. She taught them to trust in God, even when life was difficult. She would often say, "God is our Father and He will take care of us." These words comforted Gąsza, and slowly she began to find peace. Despite the sadness, Gąsza's faith grew stronger. She continued to go to church, to pray, and to feel that special connection to God. It was during these times of prayer that she began to feel something, a calling, something deep inside her heart. But she was still young, and she didn't quite understand what it was. As Gąsza grew older, she became even more devoted to her faith. She attended Mass regularly, prayed the rosary, and spent hours thinking about how she could serve God. She felt a deep sense of responsibility to help others, especially the poor. She would often go with her mother to visit the sick and the needy in their town. These visits left a deep impression on her. She saw so much suffering, but she also saw the power of love and kindness. Gąsza's education was also very important to her. She was a bright student, always eager to learn. She loved reading, especially stories about the lives of saints. She was inspired by their courage, their faith, and their dedication to God. One story that touched her deeply was about Saint Teresa of Lisieux, also known as the Little Flower. Saint Teresa believed in doing small things with great love, and this idea resonated with Gąsza. she began to think that maybe she could serve God by doing small acts of kindness, just like Saint Therese. As she entered her teenage years, Gongsha started to feel that her calling was becoming clearer. She wanted to dedicate her life to God. But how? She didn't know yet, but she felt a strong pull towards a life of service. She often thought about becoming a nun, someone who could give her whole life to God and to helping others. This idea excited her, but it also scared her. It was a big decision, and she wasn't sure if she was ready. But the more she prayed, the more she felt that this was what God wanted for her. She started to talk to her mother about her feelings. Drana listened carefully and supported her daughter, but she also reminded Gongsha that this decision would change her life forever. Drana knew how difficult it would be to let go of her daughter, but she also knew that Gongsha's happiness was in following God's will. Finally, when she was 18 years old, Gongsha made the decision that would change her life. She would become a nun. She was both excited and nervous. She knew this meant leaving her family, her home, and everything she knew. But she also knew that God was calling her to something greater. In 1928, Gongsha left Skopje and traveled to Ireland to join the Sisters of Loreto, a religious order known for its missionary work. It was a long and difficult journey, but she felt peace in her heart, knowing that she was following God's plan for her life. In Ireland, she began her training to become a nun and took the name Sister Teresa, after her beloved Saint Therese of Lisieux. Leaving her family was the hardest thing Gongsha had ever done. She missed her mother, her siblings, and her hometown, but she knew that this was her path, the path that God had chosen for her. And so, with courage and faith, she stepped into her new life, ready to serve God with all her heart. As she began her journey, Sister Teresa didn't know what the future held, but she trusted in God's plan. Little did she know, she was about to embark on a mission that would change not only her life, but the lives of millions of people around the world. And so, the little flower from Skopje began to bloom, growing into the bright, shining light that the world would one day know as Mother Teresa. Chapter 2. The Call to Serve. As Gongsha grew older, she realized that her calling was to help the poor. But how? At the age of 18, she made a big decision. She would become a nun. She left her family and traveled to Ireland to join the Sisters of Loreto, a religious order. It was hard to leave her mother and her home, but she felt that God was guiding her. In Ireland, Gongsha took the name Sister Teresa, after Saint Therese of Lisieux, who was known for her love and simplicity. Sister Teresa studied hard and learned English, which she would need for her next journey, to India. Chapter 2. The Call to Serve. As Gongsha grew older, the sense that she was meant for something more, something greater, only grew stronger. She wasn't like other girls her age. While they dreamed of marriage, family, and a comfortable life, Gongsha dreamed of something different. She felt a powerful desire to help the poor, to be with those who were suffering, and to give her life entirely to God. But how could she do this? She was just a young girl in a small town. What could she possibly do to make a difference in the world? The answer came slowly, like a whisper in her heart. The more she prayed, the more she felt that God was calling her to a special mission, a mission to serve others, especially the poorest of the poor. But what did this mean? How could she fulfill this calling? At the age of 18, Gongsha made the most important decision of her life. She decided to become a nun. This was not an easy choice. It meant leaving her family, her friends, and everything she knew. It meant saying goodbye to the comfort and security of home and stepping into the unknown. But Gongsha felt certain. She knew that God was guiding her, and she was ready to follow wherever he led. Gongsha's decision to become a nun was met with mixed emotions by her family. Her mother, Drana, was proud of her daughter's strong faith and dedication, but she was also heartbroken at the thought of losing her. Gongsha was the light of her life, the daughter who always brought joy and love into their home. The idea of her leaving for a faraway place was almost too much to bear. But Drana understood that this was Gongsha's calling, and she knew she had to let her go. With her mother's blessing, Gongsha prepared to leave Skopje. She knew that this was not just a physical journey, but a spiritual one as well. She would be leaving behind her old life to embrace a new one. A life devoted entirely to God and to serving others. In 1928, Gongsha set out on her journey. Her destination was Ireland, where she would join the Sisters of Loreto, a religious order known for its missionary work. The Sisters of Loreto had a special focus on education, and they sent their nuns all over the world to teach and to serve. This was exactly what Gongsha wanted, a chance to help others, especially those in need. The journey to Ireland was long and difficult. Gongsha had never traveled so far from home before, and she felt a mix of excitement and fear. She was leaving behind everything she knew, but she was also stepping into a new world, full of possibilities. She prayed constantly during the journey, asking God for strength and guidance. She knew that this was the beginning of a great adventure, one that would change her life forever. When Gongsha arrived in Ireland, she was welcomed warmly by the Sisters of Loreto. They immediately saw something special in her, a deep faith, a kind heart, and a strong determination to serve God. Gongsha was given a new name, Sister Teresa, in honor of Saint Therese of Lisieux, the little flower who had inspired her so much. Saint Therese was known for her simplicity and her love for God, and Sister Teresa wanted to follow in her footsteps. Sister Teresa's life in Ireland was very different from the one she had known in Skopje. She lived in a convent with other nuns, following a strict schedule of prayer, study, and work. Every day, she woke up early to pray with the other sisters, then spent hours studying religious texts, learning English, and preparing for her future mission. The days were long and often tiring, but Sister Teresa felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. She knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Learning English was a big challenge for Sister Teresa. It was a new language, full of strange words and sounds, but she worked hard to master it. She knew that English would be important for her future work, especially since the Sisters of Loreto often sent their nuns to English-speaking countries. Sister Teresa was determined to learn as much as she could, so she could be ready for whatever God had planned for her. As she studied and prayed, Sister Teresa felt her connection to God growing stronger every day. She spent many hours in quiet reflection, thinking about the mission that lay ahead of her. She didn't know exactly where she would be sent or what she would be asked to do, but she trusted that God would guide her. She felt a deep sense of purpose, a certainty that she was on the right path. After 2 years of training and preparation in Ireland, Sister Teresa received her first mission assignment. She was to go to India, a country far from her home, full of people and cultures she had never encountered before. This was both exciting and daunting. India was known for its vast population, its vibrant culture, and its deep poverty. Sister Teresa knew that this was where she was meant to be, but she also knew that it would be a huge challenge. In 1929, Sister Teresa boarded a ship bound for India. As she sailed across the ocean, she thought about the new life that awaited her. She was leaving behind the safety and comfort of the convent, stepping into a world full of uncertainty. But she wasn't afraid. She was filled with a sense of mission, a burning desire to serve God by helping the poor and the suffering. When Sister Teresa arrived in Calcutta, India, she was overwhelmed by the sights and sounds of the city. Calcutta was a place of great contrasts. Rich and poor, beauty and despair, hope and hopelessness, all living side by side. The streets were crowded with people, many of whom were living in extreme poverty. There were children begging for food, families sleeping on the sidewalks, and sick people lying in the streets. It was unlike anything Sister Teresa had ever seen. Sister Teresa began her work at St. Mary's School for Girls, a school run by the Sisters of Loreto. She was a teacher, and she loved her work. The girls at the school were from wealthy families, and they received a good education. But outside the school walls, Sister Teresa saw a very different world, a world full of poverty, sickness, and suffering. Her heart ached for the people she saw on the streets, and she couldn't ignore their pain. Every day, as she taught her students, Sister Teresa thought about the people outside the school, the people who had no one to care for them. She felt a deep sadness, but also a strong sense of responsibility. She knew that God was calling her to do more, to help those who were suffering. But how? She was just one person. What could she do? Sister Teresa prayed for guidance, asking God to show her the way. She knew that she couldn't ignore the call to serve the poor, but she also knew that it would require great courage and faith. She didn't have all the answers, but she trusted that God would lead her. And so, with a heart full of love and a deep sense of purpose, Sister Teresa prepared for the next step in her journey. She didn't know where it would lead, but she was ready to follow wherever God called her, to serve the poorest of the poor, to bring light into the darkest places, and to give her life in service to others. Before we dive into Chapter 3, we want to remind you that you're listening to this story on WooEnglish. If you're enjoying this journey into the life of Mother Teresa, don't forget to share it with your friends. Your comments and likes mean a lot to us, so please take a moment to let us know what you think. Now, let's continue with Chapter 3. Chapter 3, Arrival in India. In 1929, a young nun named Sister Teresa stepped off a ship onto the bustling shores of Calcutta, India. She was only 19 years old, but she was filled with a deep sense of purpose and a strong desire to serve God. As she took her first steps in this new land, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. India was so different from anything she had known. The colors, the sounds, the smells, everything was new and overwhelming. But in her heart, she knew this was where she was meant to be. Calcutta was a city of contrasts. On one side, there were beautiful buildings, busy markets, and people going about their daily lives. But on the other side, there was immense poverty. The streets were crowded with people who had nowhere else to go, children begging for food, women carrying heavy loads, men searching for work. Many were sick, and some were dying. The sight of so much suffering touched Sister Teresa deeply. She had come to Calcutta to teach at St. Mary's School for Girls, a school run by the Sisters of Loreto. The school was housed in a large, impressive building filled with the laughter and chatter of young girls. These girls came from wealthy families, and they were given a good education to prepare them for bright futures. Sister Teresa quickly fell in love with teaching. She enjoyed being in the classroom, helping the girls learn, and watching their minds grow. Her students admired her kindness and dedication, and they loved the gentle way she guided them. But outside the walls of St. Mary's, the world was very different. Every day, on her way to school, Sister Teresa would see people in desperate need. Children with no shoes, their clothes in tatters, looking for something to eat, mothers holding sick babies sitting on the cold, hard ground, old men and women too weak to walk, lying in the streets with no one to care for them. These sights weighed heavily on Sister Teresa's heart. She loved her work at the school, but she couldn't ignore the suffering she saw all around her. The contrast between the bright, happy world inside the school and the harsh, painful world outside was too much to bear. She began to feel that God was calling her to do something more, something beyond the walls of St. Mary's. But what could she do? She was just one person. How could she possibly help so many? The thought of all the suffering people kept her awake at night, and during the day, it was always on her mind. She prayed constantly, asking God for guidance. She knew she had to do something, but she didn't know where to start. One day, as she was walking to the school, she passed by a group of children sitting on the side of the road. They were thin and dirty, their eyes full of sadness. Sister Teresa stopped and spoke to them. She learned that they had no parents and no home. They spent their days begging for food and their nights sleeping on the streets. Sister Teresa's heart broke for these children. She gave them some of the food she had with her, but she knew it wasn't enough. They needed so much more. They needed love, care, and a place to call home. That evening, Sister Teresa couldn't stop thinking about those children. She realized that there were so many like them, so many people who were hungry, sick, and alone. And it wasn't just the children. There were adults and elderly people too, all suffering in silence. She felt a deep sadness, but also a growing determination. She knew she couldn't turn away from their pain. She had to find a way to help. Over the next few weeks, Sister Teresa continued her work at the school, but her mind was always on the people outside its walls. She began to spend more time walking through the streets of Calcutta, talking to the poor, listening to their stories, and learning about their struggles. The more she saw, the more she understood the depth of the suffering, and the more she felt called to do something about it. One evening, as she was praying in the chapel, Sister Teresa felt a powerful sense of clarity. She realized that her mission in India was not just to teach in the school, but to serve the poorest of the poor. This was the calling she had felt deep in her heart. The calling that had brought her all the way from her home in Skopje to the streets of Calcutta. She knew now what she had to do. But the decision to step out of the school and into the streets was not easy. Sister Teresa loved her students, and she didn't want to leave them. She also knew that the work she was about to undertake would be difficult, perhaps even dangerous, but she couldn't ignore the call she felt. She had to trust that God would guide her and give her the strength to do what needed to be done. Sister Teresa spoke to the head of the convent about her feelings. She explained that she felt called to leave the school and work directly with the poor. The head of the convent listened carefully and saw the sincerity in Sister Teresa's eyes. After much prayer and discussion, Sister Teresa was given permission to leave the school and begin her new mission. It was a bittersweet moment. She was sad to say goodbye to her students and fellow teachers, but she was also filled with a sense of purpose and determination. With nothing but a few rupees in her pocket and a heart full of faith, Sister Teresa stepped out into the streets of Calcutta. She had no plan, no resources, and no idea how she would accomplish her mission. But she wasn't afraid. She knew that God was with her, and she trusted that He would show her the way. The first thing Sister Teresa did was to start small. She began by helping one person at a time. She would walk through the streets, looking for those who were most in need. If she found someone who was hungry, she would share her food with them. If someone was sick, she would help them get the care they needed. If someone was lonely, she would sit with them and listen to their stories. She didn't have much to give, but she gave what she had: her time, her love, and her compassion. Word quickly spread about the kind nun who was helping the poor. Soon, others began to join her, wanting to be a part of her mission. Together, they began to make a real difference in the lives of the people they served. They didn't have a lot of money or resources, but they had something even more powerful: a deep and abiding love for the people they were helping. As Sister Teresa continued her work, she realized that the needs of the people were far greater than she had imagined. There were so many who were suffering, and she couldn't reach them all by herself. But she didn't give up. She knew that every small act of kindness made a difference. She believed that even if she could only help one person, that person's life would be changed forever. And so Sister Teresa continued her mission day after day, walking the streets of Calcutta, helping those in need and spreading love wherever she went. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing for sure. She was exactly where God wanted her to be, doing exactly what He had called her to do. This was just the beginning of a journey that would lead Sister Teresa to become known as Mother Teresa, a journey that would change the world. Chapter 4. A New Mission. In the summer of 1946, something happened that would change Sister Teresa's life forever, and change the lives of countless others around the world. It was a day like any other, but what began as a simple train ride to the city of Darjeeling soon became the turning point of her life. Sister Teresa was on her way to the cool hills of Darjeeling for a retreat, a time of prayer and reflection, something all nuns did to renew their spirit. The train rumbled through the Indian countryside, the rhythm of the tracks steady and soothing. As the train moved, Sister Teresa gazed out the window, her mind wandering. She thought about her work at St. Mary's School, the children she taught, and the poor she saw every day in the streets of Calcutta. Her heart was full of love for them, but also a deep sadness. There was so much suffering in the world, and she wondered what more she could do. Suddenly, something extraordinary happened. In that moment of quiet reflection, Sister Teresa felt a presence. It was as if Jesus Himself was speaking to her. She didn't hear words with her ears, but in her heart, she understood the message clearly. Jesus was asking her to leave the comfort of the convent and go out into the slums of Calcutta, to live among the poorest of the poor and serve them with all her heart. This vision was powerful and clear, but it was also overwhelming. Sister Teresa was stunned. She had devoted her life to God, but this was something far beyond anything she had imagined. She felt both honored and afraid. Could she really do this? Could she leave behind the life she knew, the safety and security of the convent, to live among the poor in the slums? For the rest of the journey, Sister Teresa was deep in thought. She knew this was a calling from God, but it was a difficult one. She loved her life as a teacher. She loved her students, the sisters she lived with, and the work she was doing. But she also knew that she couldn't ignore this calling. The voice in her heart was too strong, too clear. She had always trusted in God's plan for her life, and now He was asking her to take a bold and terrifying step into the unknown. When Sister Teresa arrived in Darjeeling, she spent the retreat in intense prayer. She asked God for guidance, for the strength to do what He was asking of her. She reflected on the life of Jesus, who had lived among the poor, healing the sick, feeding the hungry, and comforting the sorrowful. She thought about the words of the gospel, which called for love, compassion, and service to the least of these. The more she prayed, the more certain she became. This was what God wanted her to do. But Sister Teresa knew she couldn't make this decision alone. She had taken vows of obedience, and she needed permission from her superiors to leave the convent and begin this new mission. She also knew that what she was asking was highly unusual. Nuns didn't just leave their communities to live on their own. It was a radical idea, and she didn't know how it would be received. When she returned to Calcutta, Sister Teresa went to the head of the convent, the Mother Superior, and told her everything about the vision, the calling, and the deep conviction she felt in her heart. She explained that she wanted to leave the convent to live among the poor, to serve them directly in the slums. It was a difficult conversation. Sister Teresa loved the community at the convent, and she didn't want to cause any trouble, but she knew she had to be honest about what she felt God was asking her to do. The Mother Superior listened carefully. She saw the sincerity and determination in Sister Teresa's eyes, but she also knew that this was not a decision to be taken lightly. After much prayer and discussion, the Mother Superior agreed to let Sister Teresa pursue her calling. but she would need approval from the higher authorities in the church. It was a long process, and there were many questions to be answered. But Sister Teresa was patient. She knew that if this was truly God's will, the way would be opened. Finally, in 1948, Sister Teresa received the permission she needed. She was allowed to leave the convent and begin her new mission. It was a moment of great joy, but also of great sorrow. She said goodbye to her beloved students and the sisters who had been her family for so many years. She left the safety of the convent, stepping out into the unknown with only a few rupees in her pocket, a simple white sari, and a heart full of faith. Sister Teresa's new life began in the slums of Calcutta, a place of unimaginable poverty and suffering. She lived among the people she had come to serve, sharing in their hardships and learning from their courage. She started by caring for the sick, feeding the hungry, and teaching the children who had no one else to turn to. She had no resources, no plan, and no idea how she would survive, but she trusted in God to provide. And slowly, others began to see the work she was doing and wanted to help. As she walked through the narrow, crowded streets, she saw the faces of those who had been forgotten by the world. The lepers, the beggars, the children with no parents, the old and the dying. She saw their pain, but she also saw something else, their dignity, their resilience, and their deep humanity. Sister Teresa treated each person with the love and respect they deserved, seeing in them the face of Jesus. The work was hard. Every day brought new challenges, and sometimes it felt like the suffering would never end. But Sister Teresa never gave up. She was driven by her faith, her love for God, and her commitment to the people she served. She believed that even in the darkest places there was always hope, always light. And she was determined to be that light for those who needed it most. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Sister Teresa's mission grew. More and more people came to help her, and together they began to make a real difference in the lives of the poor. But Sister Teresa never sought recognition or praise. She only wanted to do God's work, to love and serve the people who were forgotten by the rest of the world. This was the beginning of a new chapter in Sister Teresa's life, a chapter that would eventually lead her to become known as Mother Teresa, a name that would be remembered around the world as a symbol of love, compassion, and selfless service. She had answered the call to serve, and in doing so, she had found her true mission, a mission that would change the world. Chapter 5. The beginning of the Missionaries of Charity. In the crowded streets of Calcutta, a small figure in a simple white sari with a blue border moved quietly among the people. This was Sister Teresa, now living among the poorest of the poor, sharing in their struggles and their sorrows. Her sari was not just a piece of clothing. It was a symbol, a sign that she had left behind the safety of the convent to live with the people she had come to serve. She dressed like them, ate like them, and shared in their hardships. Sister Teresa began her new life by doing what she could with what little she had. She didn't have much, just a few rupees, a small bag of supplies, and an unshakable faith in God. But she had something even more important, a heart full of love and a deep determination to help those who were suffering. One of the first things she did was to start teaching the children of the slums. These children had no school to go to, no books to read, and no one to teach them. They spent their days wandering the streets, begging for food, or helping their families in whatever way they could. Sister Teresa knew that education was the key to a better future, so she began to gather the children together in a small, makeshift classroom. Sometimes it was just a patch of ground under a tree, other times a corner in a run-down building. With a stick, she would draw letters in the dirt, teaching the children how to read and write. She taught them not only the basics of education, but also about love, kindness, and respect for one another. The children adored her. They called her Ma, which means mother, because she cared for them like a mother would. For many of them, Sister Teresa was the only source of hope and comfort in their difficult lives. But as she continued her work, Sister Teresa realized that education alone was not enough. The people in the slums needed so much more. They were hungry, sick, and often had no one to care for them. She saw children with bloated bellies from malnutrition, mothers holding weak and sickly babies, and old men and women lying on the ground, too weak to stand. The need was overwhelming. But Sister Teresa did not turn away. She started small, helping one person at a time. If she saw someone who was hungry, she would share her food with them. If someone was sick, she would try to find medicine or take them to a hospital. If someone was lonely or afraid, she would sit with them, hold their hand, and comfort them. She cleaned the wounds of lepers, held dying children in her arms, and gave comfort to those who had no one else. Her work was difficult and often heartbreaking, but she never lost faith. She believed that every act of love, no matter how small, could make a difference. Word about Sister Teresa's work spread quickly through the slums of Calcutta. People began to notice the small nun in the white sari, always ready to help, always full of love. And soon others wanted to join her. Women from all over the city, inspired by her example, came forward and asked if they could help. They too wanted to serve the poor, to give their lives to something greater than themselves. In 1950, just 4 years after she had left the convent, Sister Teresa took a bold step forward. She founded a new religious order called the Missionaries of Charity. This was a community of women dedicated to serving the poorest of the poor, living a life of poverty, chastity, and obedience, just as Sister Teresa had done. But there was one more vow they took, a vow to give wholehearted free service to the poorest of the poor. The Missionaries of Charity started with just a handful of sisters, but their work quickly grew. The sisters lived as simply as the people they served. They had no personal possessions, wore simple white saris like Sister Teresa, and relied on God's providence for everything. They spent their days working in the slums, caring for the sick, feeding the hungry, and comforting the dying. They believed that every person, no matter how poor or sick, deserved to be treated with love and dignity. The sisters would walk through the streets of Calcutta, looking for those who needed help the most. They would bring food to the hungry, bathe and dress the wounds of the sick, and provide shelter for those who had nowhere else to go. They opened homes for orphans, schools for children, and clinics for the sick. Wherever there was suffering, the sisters were there, offering their love and care. The work was not easy. The sisters faced many challenges. There were times when they had no food to give, no medicine for the sick, and no money to help those in need. The conditions they worked in were often harsh. Heat, rain, and disease were constant threats. But through it all, they remained committed to their mission. They trusted that God would provide, and somehow help always came. Donations of food, medicine, and money would arrive just when they were needed most. Volunteers would come forward to offer their time and skills. The Missionaries of Charity grew, not just in numbers, but in the impact they had on the lives of the people they served. Sister Teresa, now known as Mother Teresa, led by example. She worked alongside the sisters, never asking them to do anything she wouldn't do herself. She was often seen carrying a sick child, feeding a hungry person, or comforting someone who was dying. Her love for the poor was boundless, and it inspired everyone around her. As the Missionaries of Charity grew, their work spread beyond Calcutta. Homes for the poor and sick were opened in other cities in India and eventually in other countries around the world. The sisters worked in some of the poorest and most dangerous places on earth, always guided by their commitment to serve the least among us. Mother Teresa's mission was clear: to see the face of Jesus in every person she met, especially those who were suffering. She believed that every person deserved to be loved, no matter how poor or sick they were. She often said, "We cannot do great things, but we can do small things with great love." This simple philosophy guided everything she did. By the end of the 1950s, the Missionaries of Charity had grown into a large and respected organization. Their work was recognized by people all over the world, but Mother Teresa remained humble. She didn't seek praise or recognition. She only wanted to continue her work, to serve the poor with love and compassion. Mother Teresa's dedication to the poor, her selfless service, and her deep faith made her a symbol of hope for millions of people. Through her work, she showed the world that even the smallest acts of kindness could make a big difference. She believed that love was the most powerful force in the world, and she lived that belief every day of her life. The Missionaries of Charity became a beacon of light in the darkest places, offering love, care, and hope to those who needed it most. And at the heart of it all was Mother Teresa, a small woman with a big heart who had dedicated her life to serving the poorest of the poor. Her mission had begun, and the world would never be the same. Chapter 6. The House of the Dying. In the bustling city of Calcutta, where life was fast-paced and often harsh, Sister Teresa, now known as Mother Teresa, saw a need that most people ignored. Every day, as she walked through the crowded streets, she saw people who were suffering in silence, people who were dying alone, without anyone to care for them. These were the poorest of the poor, those who had been forgotten by society. They were too sick to work, too weak to beg, and too close to death to be noticed. But Mother Teresa noticed them, and she could not turn away. In 1952, Mother Teresa took a bold step that would become one of the most profound parts of her mission. She opened a place called Nirmal Hriday, which means pure heart. This was not just any place. It was a home for the dying. It was a place where those who were at the end of their lives could come and spend their last days with dignity, surrounded by love and care. When people first heard about Nirmal Hriday, they were shocked. Many could not understand why Mother Teresa would choose to focus on those who were already dying. "What's the point?" they asked. "Why care for someone who is going to die anyway?" But Mother Teresa saw something that others didn't. She saw the face of God in every person, especially in those who were suffering. She believed that every life, no matter how short or how painful, had value. And she believed that no one should die alone, without love, without dignity. The house that became Nirmal Hriday was an old, abandoned building near the Kaligat Temple, a place known for its spiritual significance in Calcutta. Mother Teresa saw it as the perfect location for her mission. With permission from the city authorities, she and her sisters transformed the building into a place of peace and care. It was simple, but it was clean and filled with the love of the sisters who worked there. Every day, Mother Teresa and the Missionaries of Charity would go out into the streets of Calcutta looking for those who were dying. They would find people lying in the gutters, under bridges, or in dark alleys. People who had been abandoned by their families, people who had nowhere else to go. The sisters would gently lift them up, carry them to Nirmal Hriday, and care for them as if they were their own family. At Nirmal Hriday, the dying were treated with the utmost respect. The sisters would clean their wounds, give them fresh clothes, and provide them with food and water. But more than that, they gave them love. They would sit with them, talk to them, hold their hands, and pray with them. For many of these people, it was the first time in a long time that they felt cared for, that they felt human again. One of the first people to be brought to Nirmal Hriday was a man who had been found lying in the street, covered in sores and too weak to move. When Mother Teresa saw him, she knew that he didn't have long to live. She and one of the sisters carefully carried him back to the home. They washed his body, dressed his wounds, and gave him something to eat. The man was too weak to speak, but his eyes filled with tears. He knew he was dying, but in that moment, he felt loved. He felt that he mattered. Mother Teresa stayed with him until the end, holding his hand as he took his last breath. She whispered prayers for him, asking God to welcome him into heaven. It was a moment of deep compassion and humanity, and it was just the beginning of what Nirmal Hriday would become. The news of Nirmal Hriday spread quickly through Calcutta, and soon people from all over the city began to bring their dying relatives to the home. The sisters welcomed everyone with open arms, no matter who they were, what they believed, or what their condition was. To Mother Teresa, each person was a child of God, deserving of love and dignity in their final moments. Many people continued to question Mother Teresa's decision to focus on the dying. Some thought it was a waste of time, that the resources could be better used to help those who had a chance of survival. But Mother Teresa was unwavering in her mission. She believed that every person deserved to die with dignity, surrounded by love, and not in the cold and lonely streets. She often said, "We cannot do great things, but we can do small things with great love." And that's exactly what she did. She loved those who had been forgotten, and in doing so, she gave them back their humanity. Over time, Nirmal Hriday became a place of peace, a place where the dying could find comfort and solace. The sisters who worked there saw their work as a privilege. They were not just caring for the dying, they were helping them find peace before they passed on. They believed that by offering love and care in those final moments, they were helping to ease the suffering of Jesus himself, who they saw in every person they cared for. The impact of Nirmal Hriday was profound. It changed the way people in Calcutta thought about death and dying. It showed that even in the midst of great suffering, there could be love and dignity. It reminded people that every life was precious, no matter how poor, sick, or close to death a person might be. Mother Teresa's work at Nirmal Hriday also inspired others around the world. People began to see that small acts of love could make a huge difference. They saw that caring for the dying was not just about providing physical comfort, but about restoring their humanity, about making them feel loved and valued in their final moments. Nirmal Hriday became the heart of Mother Teresa's mission. It was a place where love was given freely, where the dying were treated as beloved children of God. It was a place where the sisters lived out their vows every day, serving the poorest of the poor with all their hearts. Mother Teresa's vision for Nirmal Hriday was simple, yet it was revolutionary. She believed that love had the power to transform even the darkest situations. She believed that by loving those who were dying, she was helping to bring them closer to God, giving them a sense of peace and comfort as they passed from this world to the next. In the years that followed, Nirmal Hriday became a model for similar homes around the world. The missionaries of charity opened homes for the dying in other cities and countries, always guided by the same principle: that every person deserved to die with dignity, surrounded by love. Mother Teresa's work at Nirmal Hriday showed the world that even in the face of death, there could be hope, there could be love, and there could be dignity. She showed that every life was precious, and that even in our final moments we are worthy of love and compassion. Through her work, she reminded the world of the power of small acts of kindness and the profound impact they can have on the lives of others. Chapter 7. A Growing Mission. As the sun rose each morning over the bustling city of Calcutta, Mother Teresa would begin her day with a simple prayer: "Lord, help me to spread your love wherever I go." This prayer was the foundation of her life, the driving force behind every act of kindness, every smile, and every gentle touch she offered to those in need. Her mission, which had started with just a handful of sisters and a small house for the dying, was now beginning to grow, and grow quickly. The work of the missionaries of charity was like a beacon of light in the darkest corners of the world. People from all walks of life, rich and poor, young and old, were inspired by Mother Teresa's dedication to the poor. They saw the way she lived, with nothing more than a simple white sari, a pair of sandals, and a heart full of love. They saw how she cared for those who were often forgotten, the sick, the hungry, the dying, and they wanted to be a part of it. Soon, more and more women began to join Mother Teresa in her mission. They came from different countries, speaking different languages, but they all shared the same desire, to serve the poorest of the poor. These women took the same vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, and like Mother Teresa, they dedicated their lives to giving wholehearted free service to the poorest of the poor. As the number of sisters grew, so did the work they were able to do. Homes for the sick, the hungry, and the dying began to spring up all over India. In these homes, the sisters provided care and comfort to those who had nowhere else to turn. They fed the hungry, cared for the sick, and held the hands of the dying. They treated each person with the dignity and respect they deserved, seeing in them the face of God. One of the most remarkable things about the growth of the missionaries of charity was how it spread beyond the borders of India. The need for love and compassion knew no boundaries, and soon the sisters were being called to serve in other countries as well. They opened homes in places like Africa, Latin America, and even Europe, always bringing with them the same spirit of love and service that had guided Mother Teresa from the beginning. But the work was never easy. In fact, it was often filled with challenges. There were times when the sisters had no food to give to the hungry, no medicine for the sick, and no money to keep their homes running. They faced disease, violence, and political unrest. Yet, through all these difficulties, Mother Teresa never lost faith. She believed with all her heart that God would provide for them, and somehow, help always came. There was one particular time when the missionaries of charity were facing a severe shortage of food. The sisters had been caring for hundreds of people, and their supplies were running dangerously low. Mother Teresa gathered the sisters together and led them in prayer. She reminded them to trust in God's providence, even when things seemed impossible. That very evening, a truck pulled up outside one of their homes. The driver had heard about their work and was moved to help. The truck was filled with food, enough to feed all the people in their care. It was a miracle, one of many that Mother Teresa witnessed throughout her life. Despite the challenges, the mission continued to grow. The sisters worked tirelessly, often late into the night, caring for the needs of others. They saw their work not as a burden, but as a joy, a way to serve God by serving His people. And their joy was contagious. Volunteers from all over the world began to come to Calcutta to help. They came for a few weeks, a few months, or even a few years, and each one left changed by the experience. One of the most touching aspects of Mother Teresa's mission was the way she brought people together. She often said that we have forgotten that we belong to each other, and through her work, she reminded the world of this simple truth. She brought people from different cultures, religions, and backgrounds together in service to the poor. She showed that love could cross all barriers, that it could bring light into the darkest places. As the years went by, Mother Teresa's work gained international recognition. People began to see her as a living saint, someone who embodied the teachings of Jesus in a way that was both simple and profound. But despite the praise and admiration, Mother Teresa remained humble. She always insisted that she was just a small instrument in God's hands, doing His work. She often said, I am a little pencil in the hand of a writing God who is sending a love letter to the world. The growth of the missionaries of charity was a testament to the power of love and faith. It showed that even the smallest acts of kindness could have a ripple effect, spreading out to touch the lives of countless people. Mother Teresa's mission started with a single step, a decision to leave the convent and live among the poor, and it grew into a worldwide movement of love and compassion. But Mother Teresa never saw the mission as her own. She always gave the credit to God. She believed that everything they were able to do was because of His love and grace. She taught the sisters to rely on prayer, to trust in God's plan, even when things seemed impossible. And through their faith, they were able to accomplish incredible things. As the missionaries of charity expanded, Mother Teresa continued to lead by example. She was often seen walking through the slums of Calcutta, comforting a sick child, or sitting with someone who was dying. Her presence brought peace and comfort to those who were suffering. She didn't have much to give, but she gave what she had: her time, her love, her compassion. In the face of so many challenges, it would have been easy to become discouraged. But Mother Teresa never gave up. She knew that the work they were doing was important, that it was changing lives, even if only one person at a time. She often said, "If you can't feed 100 people, then feed just one." This simple philosophy guided her throughout her life. And so, the mission continued to grow, reaching more and more people in need. The sisters opened homes in the most unlikely places, always guided by the same spirit of love and service. They became a beacon of hope for those who had none, a light in the darkness. Mother Teresa's growing mission showed the world that love is a powerful force, capable of overcoming even the greatest challenges. It showed that with faith, determination, and a heart full of love, anything is possible. And it reminded us all that we belong to each other, that we are all called to serve, to love, and to make the world a better place. One small act of kindness at a time. Chapter 8. Recognizing the Unseen. In the busy streets of Calcutta, it was easy for people to pass by without noticing the suffering around them. The city was full of life, people hurrying to work, children playing, vendors shouting in the markets. But beneath this surface of activity, there was another world, a world of pain and poverty, where the weakest and most vulnerable were often forgotten. Mother Teresa, however, had a gift. She could see what others could not. She could recognize the unseen, the people who had been cast aside, who were invisible to society. One day, as Mother Teresa was walking through the narrow, crowded streets, she noticed something that stopped her in her tracks. There, lying in a garbage heap, was a woman. She was covered in sores, her body weak and frail, her face twisted in pain. The smell of the garbage was overpowering, and people walked by without a second glance, as if she wasn't even there. But to Mother Teresa, this woman was not just a dying beggar. She was a child of God, deserving of love and care. Without hesitation, Mother Teresa knelt down beside the woman. The sight was heartbreaking. The woman's sores were infected, her clothes were dirty and torn, and her breathing was shallow. She was clearly in terrible pain, both physically and emotionally. Mother Teresa gently touched her hand, letting the woman know that she was not alone. She spoke softly to her, telling her that she was there to help. The woman looked up at Mother Teresa with eyes full of fear and suffering, but also with a glimmer of hope. No one had touched her in a long time. No one had cared. But now, here was this small, gentle woman who saw her, who recognized her pain, and who was willing to help. With great care, Mother Teresa lifted the woman into her arms. It was not an easy task. The woman was weak, and every movement seemed to cause her pain. But Mother Teresa carried her as if she were carrying a precious treasure, taking her away from the filth and despair of the garbage heap. She walked through the streets, her heart full of compassion, determined to give this woman the dignity she deserved. When they arrived at Nirmal Hriday, the home for the dying, the sisters quickly gathered around to help. They washed the woman's body, carefully cleaning her wounds, and dressed her in clean clothes. They gave her food and water, but more importantly, they gave her love. They spoke to her kindly, held her hand, and prayed for her. The woman, who had been so close to death, began to relax. For the first time in a long time, she felt safe. She felt cared for. Mother Teresa stayed with the woman throughout the night, sitting by her bedside, holding her hand and comforting her. The woman's pain was intense, but Mother Teresa's presence brought her peace. She knew she was not alone, that someone cared enough to stay with her until the end. As the night wore on, the woman's breathing became more labored. Mother Teresa continued to hold her hand, whispering prayers and words of comfort. She told the woman that she was loved, that her life had value, and that she would soon be with God. In those final moments, the woman looked at Mother Teresa with a sense of gratitude. She was no longer afraid. She knew she was loved. And then, quietly and peacefully, the woman passed away. Mother Teresa gently closed her eyes and prayed for her soul. "She has died a beautiful death," Mother Teresa said softly, with the joy of knowing that she was loved. It was a moment of profound peace, a moment that captured the essence of Mother Teresa's mission. She had given this woman the greatest gift anyone could give, the gift of love and dignity in her final moments. This experience was not unique. Mother Teresa and the Sisters of the Missionaries of Charity encountered many people like this woman, people who had been forgotten by the world, who were suffering alone without anyone to care for them. But Mother Teresa believed that every person, no matter how poor or sick, deserved to be treated with respect. She saw the face of God in every individual, and she dedicated her life to making sure that they were recognized and cared for. Mother Teresa's ability to see the unseen was one of her greatest strengths. She didn't just look at the surface. She looked deeper into the hearts and souls of the people she served. She saw their pain, their fear, but also their dignity and their humanity. To her, they were not just the poor or the dying. They were people, each with their own story, their own dreams, and their own worth. This deep compassion, this ability to see the unseen, inspired others to join her in her mission. More and more people came to volunteer at Nirmal Hriday and the other homes run by the Missionaries of Charity. They, too, began to see what Mother Teresa saw, the beauty and value in every human life. They learned to look beyond the dirt, the sickness, and the poverty, and to see the person underneath. And in doing so, they found that their own lives were transformed. Mother Teresa's work was not just about providing physical care. It was about recognizing the inherent dignity in every person. It was about showing love to those who had been forgotten, about bringing light into the darkest corners of the world. She often said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love." And that is exactly what she did, every day of her life. Her actions sent a powerful message to the world, that every life is valuable, that every person deserves to be treated with respect and love, no matter their circumstances. She showed that by recognizing the unseen, by loving those who are often ignored, we can make a profound difference in the world. Mother Teresa's legacy lives on in the work of the Missionaries of Charity, in the lives of those she touched, and in the hearts of people around the world. She taught us that true compassion is about seeing the unseen, loving the unloved, and giving dignity to those who need it most. Through her life and her work, Mother Teresa showed us the power of love, a love that recognizes the unseen, that reaches out to those in need, and that transforms the world, one small act of kindness at a time. Chapter 9. A Nobel Prize for Peace. In 1979, the world paused to recognize the extraordinary work of a small, humble woman from Calcutta, Mother Teresa. Her tireless efforts to care for the poorest of the poor had touched the hearts of millions. She had become a symbol of compassion, a beacon of hope for those who had none, and a reminder of the power of love in a world often filled with suffering. The Nobel Committee in Norway decided to honor her with the Nobel Peace Prize, one of the most prestigious awards in the world. When the news reached her, Mother Teresa was surprised and humbled. She never sought recognition or praise for her work. To her, the greatest reward was the opportunity to serve those in need. But the world saw something extraordinary in her simple acts of kindness, and they wanted to celebrate her mission of peace and love. On the day of the award ceremony, Mother Teresa traveled to Oslo, Norway. It was a cold winter day, but the warmth of her presence filled the hearts of everyone who met her. Unlike the other dignitaries and guests, who were dressed in elegant gowns and suits, Mother Teresa wore her usual simple white sari with a blue border. She had no interest in material wealth or luxury. Her sari, the same one she wore every day in the streets of Calcutta, was a powerful symbol of her commitment to the poor. As she entered the grand hall where the ceremony was held, all eyes were on her. She was a tiny figure in the midst of great splendor, yet she commanded the respect and admiration of everyone present. The room was filled with world leaders, scholars, and influential figures, but it was Mother Teresa who stood out, not because of her appearance, but because of the greatness of her heart. When it was time for her to accept the Nobel Peace Prize, Mother Teresa stepped forward with grace and humility. She did not deliver a long, complicated speech. Instead, she spoke from the heart in simple words that everyone could understand. She thanked the Nobel Committee for recognizing her work, but she made it clear that the award was not just for her. It was for the poor people she served, the people who were often forgotten by society. She reminded everyone that peace begins with love, that if we truly want to make the world a better place, we must start by loving those closest to us. "We can do no great things," she said, her voice gentle yet firm. "Only small things with great love, and love begins at home." These words, simple yet profound, resonated deeply with the audience. They understood that Mother Teresa was not just talking about grand gestures or global initiatives. She was talking about the everyday acts of kindness and compassion that each person could offer. Mother Teresa also made a special request during her speech. She asked that the prize money, which amounted to thousands of dollars, be given directly to the poor. She didn't want to keep a single cent for herself or for the missionaries of charity. She knew that the money could be used to buy food for the hungry, medicine for the sick, and shelter for the homeless. For Mother Teresa, this was the true purpose of the Nobel Prize, to help those who needed it most. Her request was granted, and the prize money was used to support her ongoing work in Calcutta and around the world. But the impact of her words and her example went far beyond the monetary value of the prize. People all over the world were inspired by her message of love and peace. They saw in her a true servant of humanity, someone who lived out the teachings of Jesus every day of her life. As she left the ceremony, Mother Teresa was surrounded by reporters and photographers. They asked her many questions, wanting to know more about her work and her thoughts on the state of the world. But Mother Teresa kept her answers simple. She spoke about the importance of caring for the poor, of seeing the face of God in every person, and of spreading love wherever we go. She didn't talk about politics or global issues. She talked about the power of love to change the world, one person at a time. The next day, Mother Teresa visited a shelter for homeless people in Oslo. She spent time with the residents, talking to them, holding their hands, and offering them words of comfort. She wasn't interested in the attention of the media or the praise of the public. She was interested in the people she had come to serve. This was Mother Teresa's way, always focusing on the individual, always giving her time and love to those who needed it most. The Nobel Peace Prize brought even more attention to Mother Teresa's work. Donations poured in from all over the world, allowing the missionaries of charity to expand their work to even more countries. New homes for the poor and sick were opened in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. Volunteers from every corner of the globe came to join her mission, inspired by her example of selfless love. But through it all, Mother Teresa remained the same humble servant of God. She never let the fame or recognition change her. She continued to live simply, wearing the same white sari, eating the same simple meals, and spending her days caring for the poor. She continued to see herself as a little pencil in the hand of a writing God, as she often said, doing his work in the world. Mother Teresa's acceptance of the Nobel Peace Prize was a moment of great significance, not just for her, but for the world. It was a reminder that true peace is not just the absence of war, but the presence of love, compassion, and care for one another. It was a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can have a profound impact, that they can ripple out and change the world. In the years that followed, Mother Teresa continued her mission with the same dedication and love. She never slowed down, even as she grew older and her health began to fail. She knew that there was still so much work to be done, so many people who needed help, and she was determined to continue serving them as long as she could. Mother Teresa's legacy lives on today, not just in the work of the missionaries of charity, but in the hearts of all those who were touched by her example. She showed us that peace begins with love, that we each have the power to make the world a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. And she reminded us that in the end, it is not the great things we do that matter, but the love with which we do them. Chapter 10. Challenges and Criticism. As Mother Teresa's work with the poor grew more widely known, so did the attention it received. Her mission, which had begun in the streets of Calcutta, had spread across the globe. The world watched as this small, determined woman and her sisters cared for the sick, the dying, and the forgotten. But with this attention also came criticism, and challenges that tested her resolve. Mother Teresa was never one to seek fame or recognition. Her only desire was to serve the poorest of the poor, to bring love and dignity to those who had none. But as her mission grew, so did the voices of those who questioned her methods. Some people felt that she wasn't doing enough to address the root causes of poverty. They argued that providing food and shelter was only a temporary solution, and that more needed to be done to fight poverty on a larger scale. Others criticized the conditions in some of the homes run by the missionaries of charity. They pointed out that the facilities were often very basic, with few medical supplies and limited resources. Some people felt that Mother Teresa's approach was too old-fashioned, too focused on suffering rather than on healing and recovery. They questioned why more wasn't being done to improve the standards of care in these homes. There were also those who disagreed with Mother Teresa's strong religious beliefs. She was deeply committed to her Catholic faith, and this shaped every aspect of her work. Her homes were places of prayer and devotion, where the sisters and the people they served prayed together every day. Some critics felt that this emphasis on religion was too rigid, that it excluded people of other faiths or those who did not believe in God. These criticisms hurt. Mother Teresa was human, and like anyone else, she felt the sting of negative comments. She had dedicated her entire life to serving others, often at great personal sacrifice. To hear that some people did not appreciate or understand her work was difficult. But Mother Teresa was not one to dwell on these feelings. She knew that her mission was not about pleasing everyone or meeting the expectations of the world. Her mission was about being faithful to the calling she had received from God. "I'm not here to be successful," she would often say. "I'm here to be faithful." These words became her guiding principle, a reminder that her work was not about achieving worldly success, but about doing what God had asked of her. She believed that her job was to serve the poor with love and compassion, to see the face of Jesus in every person she met, and to trust that God would take care of the rest. One of the most significant criticisms came from those who felt that the missionaries of charity should focus more on modern medical care. In some of the homes, critics argued, the sisters were providing only basic care to people who were seriously ill. They questioned why Mother Teresa didn't invest more in modern medical equipment and facilities, why she didn't work more closely with doctors and hospitals to provide better care. Mother Teresa's response to these criticisms was simple, but deeply rooted in her beliefs. She saw her mission as one of love and compassion, not just of providing medical care. She believed that the most important thing she could give to the people she served was love, dignity, and a sense of being valued as human beings. For her, the act of holding someone's hand, of sitting with them in their pain, of praying with them, was just as important, if not more so, than any medical treatment. She also believed that suffering had a purpose. In her view, suffering brought people closer to God, and it was a way for them to share in the suffering of Jesus on the cross. This was a belief that not everyone shared, and it was one of the most controversial aspects of her work. But for Mother Teresa, it was central to her understanding of her mission. She saw her role as being with people in their suffering, offering them love and comfort in their final moments, and helping them to die with dignity. Despite the criticisms, Mother Teresa remained focused on her work. She continued to travel the world, opening new homes, caring for the poor, and spreading her message of love and compassion. She met with world leaders, spoke at international conferences, and received numerous awards and honors. But none of this changed her. She remained the same humble, dedicated servant of God, always more concerned with the people in her care than with the opinions of others. One of the most powerful examples of Mother Teresa's response to criticism came in her interactions with the media. Journalists would often ask her difficult questions, challenging her on her methods and her beliefs. But Mother Teresa never wavered. She would respond with kindness and humility, always bringing the conversation back to her mission. She would talk about the people she served, the love she had for them, and the importance of seeing the face of Jesus in every person. She never let the criticisms distract her from what she believed was her true calling. Over time, many of the people who had criticized Mother Teresa came to see the value of her work. They saw the impact she was having on the lives of the poor, the sick, and the dying. They saw the love and dedication of the sisters who worked with her, and they began to understand that her mission was about more than just providing physical care. It was about offering love, dignity, and hope to those who had none. But Mother Teresa never let the praise or the criticism define her. She continued to live simply, to work tirelessly, and to pray constantly. She knew that her work was not about achieving success in the eyes of the world, but about being faithful to the call she had received from God. She trusted that God would take care of the rest. In the end, Mother Teresa's legacy is not defined by the criticisms she faced, but by the lives she touched. She showed the world the power of love, the importance of seeing the dignity in every human being, and the value of small acts of kindness. She taught us that true success is not measured by wealth, power, or fame, but by the love we give to others. As we remember Mother Teresa's life and work, we are reminded of her unwavering faith, her deep compassion, and her commitment to serving the poorest of the poor. She showed us that even in the face of criticism and challenges, it is possible to remain true to our mission, to stay focused on what really matters, and to continue doing small things with great love. Chapter 11. a heart full of love. As the years passed, the demands of a life spent serving the poorest of the poor began to take their toll on Mother Teresa's health. The relentless work, the long hours, the emotional strain, all of it started to wear down her once strong body. She suffered from heart problems and other illnesses, but despite these challenges, Mother Teresa never stopped working. Her heart, although physically weakened, was still full of love and determination. She knew that her mission was far from over, and she would continue to serve until the very end. Even as her health declined, Mother Teresa remained deeply involved in the work of the missionaries of charity. She was always there, guiding the sisters, making decisions, and caring for the poor. She may have moved more slowly, and there were days when she had to rest more than she would have liked, but she never let her physical limitations stop her from fulfilling her calling. There were times when Mother Teresa could no longer walk without help. Her heart condition worsened, and she had to undergo medical treatment, including surgery. But even in the hospital, she continued to think about the people she served. She would ask the nurses and doctors about their families, offering them words of encouragement and prayers. Her focus was always on others, never on herself. When she was too weak to leave her bed, Mother Teresa still found ways to lead and inspire. She would meet with the sisters, giving them advice and sharing her wisdom. She would pray with them, encouraging them to keep their faith strong and to continue the work they had started together. Even in her weakest moments, her spirit remained unbroken. Her love for the poor and her commitment to her mission were as strong as ever. The Sisters of the Missionaries of Charity were deeply devoted to Mother Teresa. They saw her as not just their leader, but as a mother, a guide, and a living example of what it meant to serve God through service to others. They cared for her with the same love and compassion that she had shown to so many people throughout her life. They knew that every moment they spent with her was precious, and they treasured her guidance and presence. As Mother Teresa's health continued to decline, there was a sense among those around her that her time on earth was coming to an end. But there was also a deep sense of peace. Mother Teresa had lived a life full of purpose, a life dedicated to loving and serving the poorest of the poor. She had given everything she had to her mission, and now, as she neared the end of her journey, she was ready to return to God. In 1997, after nearly 50 years of tireless service, Mother Teresa passed away. The news of her death spread quickly around the world, and people everywhere mourned the loss of this remarkable woman. She had touched so many lives, brought hope to so many who had none, and inspired countless others to follow in her footsteps. The world grieved, but it also celebrated the life of a woman who had shown what it truly meant to live with a heart full of love. Tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. Leaders, celebrities, and ordinary people alike spoke of the impact Mother Teresa had on their lives. They remembered her kindness, her humility, and her unwavering dedication to those in need. They remembered the way she had seen the dignity in every person, no matter how poor or sick, and how she had treated everyone with the same love and respect. But even in death, Mother Teresa's spirit lived on. The Missionaries of Charity, the order she had founded so many years before, continued their work with the same commitment and passion that she had shown. The sisters knew that their mission was not just a job. It was a calling, a way of living out the love that Mother Teresa had taught them. They continued to open new homes, to care for the sick, the hungry, and the dying, and to bring comfort and hope to those who needed it most. Mother Teresa had always believed that the work she started was not hers alone. It was God's work, and she was merely an instrument in His hands. She often said, "I am a little pencil in the hand of a writing God who is sending a love letter to the world." She knew that the Missionaries of Charity would continue their work long after she was gone. guided by the same spirit of love and service that had guided her. And indeed, they did. The missionaries of charity grew even after Mother Teresa's death, reaching more countries, more cities, and more people in need. Her legacy of love, compassion, and service continued to inspire new generations of people who wanted to make a difference in the world. Her example showed that even the smallest acts of kindness could have a powerful impact, that love truly could change the world. Mother Teresa's life was a testament to the power of love, a love that was not just a feeling but a choice, a commitment to see the value in every human being, to serve others with humility and grace, and to never turn away from those who were suffering. Her heart, full of love for the poor, the sick, and the dying, continued to beat in the hearts of those who followed her path. In the years since her passing, Mother Teresa has been honored in many ways. She was canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church, recognized for her holiness and her dedication to living out the teachings of Jesus. But perhaps the greatest honor is the ongoing work of the missionaries of charity, who continue to bring light to the darkest places, who continue to love those who are unloved, and who continue to live out the mission that Mother Teresa began. Mother Teresa's story is one of unwavering faith, unbreakable love, and unshakable commitment to serving others. It is a story that teaches us the importance of seeing the dignity in every person, of loving without condition, and of giving ourselves fully to the work that God has called us to do. As we remember Mother Teresa's life, we are reminded that true greatness is not found in wealth, power, or fame, but in a heart full of love. A love that reaches out to the poorest of the poor, that sees the face of God in every person, and that continues to inspire the world long after we are gone. Mother Teresa may no longer be with us, but her spirit lives on in the hearts of those she touched, in the work of the missionaries of charity, and in the countless lives that have been changed by her example of love and service. Her heart, though now still, continues to beat through the love that she shared with the world, a love that will never die. Chapter 12. The Legacy of Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa's life was more than just a series of remarkable events. It was a testament to the power of love, a love that was simple yet profound, humble yet world-changing. Throughout her life, she demonstrated that even the smallest acts of kindness can have a ripple effect, spreading far beyond what we can see or imagine. Her legacy is not just in the buildings she established or the awards she received. It lives on in the countless lives she touched and the hearts she changed. Mother Teresa's journey began in a small town in Macedonia, but her mission took her to the bustling streets of Calcutta, and from there to the entire world. She started with nothing but faith and determination. No grand plans, no resources, just a deep belief that every person deserved to be loved and cared for. This simple belief became the foundation of her life's work, and it continues to inspire people today. One of the most significant aspects of Mother Teresa's legacy is the impact of the missionaries of charity, the religious order she founded in 1950. What began as a small group of dedicated sisters working in the slums of Calcutta has grown into a global movement. Today, the missionaries of charity serve the poor in over 130 countries, offering love, care, and dignity to those who need it most. In the homes that Mother Teresa and her sisters built, the sick find healing, the hungry find food, and the dying find comfort. These homes are places of peace, where every person is treated with the respect and kindness they deserve. The sisters continue to live by the principles that Mother Teresa taught them: to serve with humility, to love without judgment, and to see the face of Jesus in every person they meet. Mother Teresa's work was not just about providing physical care, it was about restoring dignity and hope to those who had lost it. She believed that every person, no matter how poor or sick, had the right to die with dignity, to know that they were loved. This belief continues to guide the work of the missionaries of charity as they care for the poorest of the poor in cities and villages around the world. But Mother Teresa's legacy is not confined to the work of the missionaries of charity. Her life and message have inspired millions of people to look beyond themselves, to reach out to those in need, and to make a difference in their own communities. Her words, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love," have become a guiding principle for people everywhere. These words remind us that we don't have to be rich, powerful, or famous to make a difference. We just need to be willing to love and serve others no matter how small our actions may seem. Mother Teresa's influence extends beyond the religious and charitable communities. She has inspired leaders, celebrities, and ordinary people to take action, to be more compassionate, and to think more about the needs of others. Her example of selfless service has shown the world that true greatness is not found in wealth or power, but in the ability to love and care for the most vulnerable among us. In 2016, nearly 2 decades after her death, Mother Teresa was canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church. This was a formal recognition of what so many people already knew, that she was a living saint, a person who embodied the love and compassion of Christ in every aspect of her life. The canonization ceremony was attended by thousands of people from all over the world, all of whom had been touched in some way by her life and work. But even before she was officially recognized as a saint, Mother Teresa was already seen as one by those who knew her. To the people of Calcutta, she was more than just a nun. She was a mother, a friend, and a source of hope. To the sisters of the missionaries of charity, she was a guide, a mentor, and a living example of what it meant to serve God through serving others. To the world, she was a beacon of light in a world often filled with darkness, a reminder that love can overcome even the greatest challenges. Mother Teresa's legacy is also evident in the many awards and honors she received during her lifetime, including the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979. But for her, these awards were not important. What mattered to her was the work itself, the simple daily acts of caring for those who were suffering. She once said, "The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway." This was how she lived her life, always focusing on the present moment, always giving her best, regardless of whether it was recognized or rewarded. The world today continues to remember and honor Mother Teresa through various memorials, films, books, and organizations that carry on her mission. Schools, hospitals, and charities have been named after her, and her story is taught to children and adults alike as an example of what it means to live a life of love and service. Her life serves as a powerful reminder that one person, no matter how small or insignificant they may seem, can make a tremendous difference in the world. As we reflect on the life and legacy of Mother Teresa, we are reminded that her work is far from over. The challenges she faced, poverty, sickness, and suffering, still exist in the world today. But so too does the power of love, the ability to see the dignity in every person, and the willingness to serve those in need. These are the gifts that Mother Teresa left us, and they are the gifts that continue to inspire and guide us as we seek to make the world a better place. In the end, Mother Teresa's legacy is not just about the homes she built, the lives she saved, or the awards she received. It is about the love she shared with the world, a love that continues to live on in the hearts of those she touched. She showed us that even the smallest acts of kindness can change the world, that love truly is the most powerful force we have, and that each of us has the ability to make a difference, no matter how small. Mother Teresa once said, "We ourselves feel that what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean would be less because of that missing drop." Her life was filled with countless drops of love, compassion, and service, and because of her, the world is a better place. Her legacy is one of hope, one of courage, and one of unshakable faith in the power of love to transform lives and heal the world. As we carry forward the lessons of her life, let us remember that we too can add our own drops to the ocean. That we too can change the world, one small act of kindness at a time. In doing so, we honor the memory of Mother Teresa and continue her mission of love and service in a world that so desperately needs it.